Hola from the West Side. It's me, DC the Purple Diva. Happy Wednesday and welcome to another night of Not So Random Chat. I hope that everyone who celebrates Thanksgiving is ready for it. But I know that some people don't celebrate Thanksgiving for obvious reasons. Hey, Tatted Hearts, how are you? Happy Wednesday. Hola. How are you doing? I hope you're doing good. How are you doing tonight, Tatted Hearts? Oh, I see. Oh, you don't. Oh, so you're off. Yeah, I'm off until Monday too. I'm off until Monday too. Yeah, tonight is a nice mellow night so far. I've got everything I'm starting to prep, but I'll be doing some stuff after I get off here with you guys. Because I don't want to be cooking everything tomorrow. I'm going to make some gumbo tonight. So do you celebrate Thanksgiving, Tatted Hearts, or no? Because I know a lot of people don't. My sister might come by tomorrow, so that'll be good. I don't know why this thing has me in top chat. It always takes me to top chat. So what did you do today since you had no school? What did you do with your day with no school today? Because I had a kind of mellow day. I mean, I definitely had to work, but I was able to, to take time out to eat lunch and then take time out to go do a little grocery shopping to get the last minute stuff that I needed to get for dinner for tomorrow. But other than that, I thought I was going to come on, but that just did not work out. But tomorrow, I'll definitely be on during the day. Today, it was just too busy. It was too busy with work. But tomorrow, I definitely plan on coming on, at least for a little while. But I know we're going to have we're probably going to have a panel discussion tonight. If Terry shows up. If Terry doesn't show up, then we may just talk about whatever, which is always fun anyway. But right now, my son has gone to sleep. So he's just left it nice and quiet and tranquil down here. But I don't know how long that's going to last because he might get up and come back down. But for right now, I'm just chilling with the music. Chilling with whoever comes into the chat. and just talking about the day. It rained around here where I am, and I know it rained in most of California. I know that kind of ruined a lot of people's holiday plans because there were a lot of delays for those who were flying out. And then it was snowing on the freeway for people who were going to Northern California from Southern California. But we need the rain, even though we just had the fires. We need the rain. They did have to do a couple of rescues for homeless that somehow were in the river in LA. There's always someone, even though they try to get them all out there, that winds up out in those little riverbeds, which I guess if there wasn't water rolling down, it would be a nice place, you know, little tree where they can put their tent and everything. But when that water's coming through it's crazy and it's dangerous. They can die just trying to have a place to sleep. They really have to do something about the homeless problem here. Because it shouldn't be like that. It really, really shouldn't. No, Hey, Mobile Diaries. Thank you, love, from the Philippines. I appreciate it. Just getting started. It's just mellow, just talking about the day. And a lot of people here in the United States are celebrating Thanksgiving tomorrow, but some of us, you know, don't really celebrate the day, but we, you know, do like the time with family. So I'm preparing for that because I'm having, you know, friends and family over. What time is it there in the Philippines, Mobile Diaries? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the happy Thanksgiving. I appreciate it. What time is it there? Because I know it's already Thursday there. It's like Thursday afternoon or something. I think it might be Thursday afternoon. No, not that late. Maybe mid-morning. It's 1:52, so it is afternoon. Wow. So when it's nighttime here, it's daytime there. That's so weird. And you're still at work? Yeah. Yeah, I know it's just another work day for you guys. Well, you've got one more day after today, and then it'll be the weekend. Here in the United States, on Friday is when they officially start all the sales and stuff for the Christmas holiday, which is such a commercial holiday now. I mean, they don't even remember. I'm like, they pretend it has something to do with Jesus, but it has nothing to do with him. But it has nothing to do, you know. But on Friday, they're going to be having all of these sales. And I might look to see if I can find a good sale on a TV. But that's about the only thing that I'm looking for, because I think I'm gonna make some things. I mean, I'll buy a couple of things for Christmas, but I think I'm gonna make a couple of things too. I think that's more personal, you know. And if people really want to be, it's about, you know, giving to others, then it should be, people should give things from the heart and not necessarily material things when it comes to the Christmas holidays, even though it really has nothing to do with Jesus. You know, even though has nothing to do, people put that in there, you know. With Jesus, you know, cut that down. Cut down the sound. Okay. Go ahead and finish your report. Yes, I will, and I will probably be back on when it's later your time, like, because I'm going to come on again. It'll probably be like evening, but it'll be like morning here. All right. Have a good time at work. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully it'll be short and sweet. Thank you for coming. You can chat. You can type in the chat room if you want to. But yeah. So, but one of the things that I'm hoping that we talk about tonight is I'm hoping that we talk about the Balfour Treaty and the impact that it had on really a lot of the wars that have happened, you know, during the 20th and the 21st century. I think it had an impact on World War II, you know, and definitely all of the stuff that's happened in the Middle East, from, you know, from Desert Storm, you know, well, I don't even remember what the other one was called, you know, the Persian Gulf, you know, all of the Persian Gulf crises, everything, all of that, all can be rolled back to that one document and what they were trying to do with that document versus what actually happened with that document. And, you know, and just, you know, just really talk about some history of Israel, you know, from ancient times, as well as, you know, the current Israel. So I'm hoping that Mr. Terry Toure will come on in, you know, tonight, because I know he did some research. I did some research as well, but I think he had more things that he looked at other than what I did. Did you guys hear that the owner of Morton's restaurant, that one of his sons died? He had some restaurants too, you know, and but they found him deceased. That happened like in the last couple of days. I've been to Morton's before. And I think they're also involved with the Hard Rock Cafe. I think that belongs to that family too, or they're partnered with the folks. But I think that was a good, you know, I think that I didn't even know that family was involved in all of the restaurants. I guess it makes sense because of the father, but I mean, everybody, it seems both of the sons were involved in restaurants and everything. Anyway, guys, as you come in, please don't forget to smash the like button. Don't forget to smash the like button. Just a moment. Someone is at my door. I'm going to put you guys on mute for just 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, I'm back. So, my son accidentally or purposely, he used his phone and accidentally called 911 on his phone. So I just had to have a conversation with the police, and he had to go to the front door so that they could see that he is an adult with autism who accidentally made a phone call. You had a power outage everywhere in Ohio. Hey, Terry. Sorry, guys. I had to put you guys on pause for a minute. My son called 911 from his cell phone. No, we're not going to have that. Matter of fact, you need to bring your phone down here. So, yeah, I had to go handle that for a minute. The power is out in Ohio, Matt. Wow. So anyway, the good thing is that even though my son did that, I have company over here tonight. Some of my people that are coming in for the holiday are already here tonight, thankfully. So, he's going to be cool, I hope. And he's not going to use his phone anymore tonight, right? Right? Okay. So, hey, Terry, are you prepared for our conversation tonight? You're not in trouble, sweetie, okay? You're not in trouble. Yeah, I just got back on. I'm sorry. I had to, go take care of something. That was kind of, when your doorbell gets rung and it's the police because your son has called the police, 911 by accident, and they could tell it was someone who was not really verbal, but they wanted to make sure that everything was okay. So I had to get him to come downstairs and actually go to the door and let them know if he was okay. Yeah, that's what just happened at my house. I tell y'all. But you ready? Okay, cool, Terry. Give me a second. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. Just give me 1 second. Y'all, it's all good. It is all good in the hood. He thinks I'm mad at him, but I'm not. So my guy went out there to go just chill with the police for a minute so that they know everything's cool here. And then one of my other friends is also out there. So it's a couple of them out there talking to the police just so that they know everything's cool and that they're dealing with an adult with autism. It's a good thing I have folk over here tonight. Some of them are helping me or think they're helping me with cooking. LOL. All right. Oh, that's Angel. Hey, Angel. 1 second. I'm going to let you come on in. Hey, Angel.
Hey, DC.
How are you?
My night has been going great, but just a little bit ago, I was on that person's stream, and they kicked me off of their panel for no reason at all, and it's a person that you've never met, and but it's nothing that big of a deal to me, but I just don't know what I did to deserve that. But hey,
I'm so sorry about that, Angel.
Because I was just on there because she was having a Friendsgiving stream, and this person you've never met before, and the four of them were like having a great time talking about the Thanksgivings, and I decided to just join in, and I was just like giving compliments to people, having fun and joking around, and for no apparent reason, she put me back in the basement and ended her stream, and then with the StreamYard's new feature of like removing people from the basement completely or blocking them, she just like kicked me off, and I don't know what I did to have that happen, but it's no big deal. If they can't take a joke, then well, I don't know.
You went out there and talked to him?
Well, the thing is, I tried joining back in, and since and I don't know what the reason why, because basically once she had her stream and removed me, like kicked me out of the basement because of StreamYard's new feature where you can kick people out of the basement or the backstage as it's referred to. She me out when she ended the stream from the basement, and then I like waited 10 minutes, and then when they said something about the being nasty and such, and I don't know if it was referring to me or not. And when I joined, went back in a second time, she like kicked me out instantly.
Well, I'm so sorry that happened to you. It's unfortunate that some people. If they don't want you to come up, they just say so. Don't, it's no point of being impolite, and if you drop the link down into the stream and you say anybody can come up, then anybody's going to come up.
But it's just that I've been on her stream a couple times beforehand, and she even has came to my channel a couple times, commenting on a video of mine, and even typing in a live stream chat of mine. And there didn't seem to be any problem. And she is basically someone that I met here on YouTube like about 3 weeks ago, and I've been enjoying her channel.
Well,
But
maybe she was just having a bad day or something.
I don't think it was that, but I kind of maybe think it's the alcohol because her channel name is by the title of Keep Sipping.
Oh. Yeah, then it could have been the alcohol. I wouldn't take it personal. I wouldn't take it personal.
I'm not, but it's just I was there for a short period of time, and basically what I did was simply put my pillow over my head, and we started talking about the what the pillow is made of and why I don't have a pillowcase on here. And then when I simply put my sheets around me and my blanket over my head, it was just for me to play a bit of a ghost character. And she says that people don't show their face on the screen, whether it's like them having the camera up or them simply covering their head. She puts the people in the basement, but that wasn't what caused her to kick me out to begin with. And then she brought me back on after I had moved my blanket from my head to show my entire face. And I communicated with the people on the channel and had some fun. Then, for no apparent reason, when I simply gave her a compliment, wow.
I don't know. I wouldn't even worry about that person, you know, because there's plenty of other people you can meet on YouTube.
Yeah.
Hey, Terry.
Hey, Terry.
Hello. Hi.
You were probably listening to the conversation, and yeah.
Yeah, no, Angel got kicked off of another panel, and he was just talking about that while we were waiting for you to come on up. How was your day today, Terry?
It was great. It was great. It was great. I was out and about. Sorry I'm late. I thought that you were beginning at 10.
No worries. You know, it didn't even matter because I wasn't gonna go straight into that anyway. I was gonna wait until you got here because I know you don't always come in right at the beginning anyway. So, and considering that my son called the police, it's a good thing, you know, because I would have had to, you know, literally stop the conversation, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I understand.
It's all good. Yeah. It's all good because now that they know someone lives here with autism, they're going to notate that in the records. So now in their records, they're going to have in their records that there's someone in this unit that has autism. Hey Barry, I'm sorry, I wasn't ignoring you. I was just letting Angel speak.
Yeah, about something that I had happened to me, but it happened like about 15 minutes prior to me coming on here with you.
Well, there's nothing like that going on here. You know, it's all about respect with everybody here. As long as you're respectful, then we respect you. That's the way it works around here. We don't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's all I was doing is being respectful and having fun with people. Because you've seen my videos often, they're right, Purple Diva. I try to have fun with every panel that I go on, and the moments that I post on my channel where I'm laughing, I just want to create some joy, create some entertainment, and have fun with people. And if there's anything I did that made her uncomfortable, she should have said that to me. Because do I know what people are like, how they feel? No. And if there's something I say that made her uncomfortable or that she found that was inappropriate, she could have just said that to me, and I could watch watch what I say next time around.
I'm sorry. I was having a back chat with one of my friends about my son. Oh man. Yeah, Terry, I did just give like a little precursor about what we were going to talk about tonight. You know, just about the impacts that the Balfour Declaration really had on you know, on the last 100 years, really. It's up to 2019. I mean, because it's still having an impact, you know. But I thought we would start with the people that are involved, the players, and give the history of the players first. And I know you have the you know, the references in regards to the Khazarians. So I thought we would start with that in regards to this. Go ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and one doesn't know where that land is located. It's located, if you look at the map, Eastern European area. The area is between the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea. Now, there is a strip of land between those 2 points. That is a steps, mountains, steps. People call them that. Now, north of that, all the way up north, in that particular geographical area, that was once the land of Khazaria, and Khazaria was a very formidable force in the ages. In ancient times, they were a major but almost forgotten power, very remote in history. They became converted to Judaism around 740. Now, briefly get into that.
It's 740 AD.
Yes, yeah. Well, my reference has that. Absolutely. Okay. But,
Yeah, that's a poignant point.
Pardon me?
That's a poignant point that they converted to Judaism after the death of Christ, or of Jesus.
Right. Exactly. It is one of the major contradictions in terms of the some of the points that they adopt now, especially their talking points about the right of return policy that they have. However, they actually they flourished. Let's see, from the 7th to 11th century AD. About the time they were a power about the time of the rule of Charlemagne, which was around about the 6th century to the 9th century. Kind of coincides with that. They were instrumental in stopping the Muslim onslaught against Byzantium. Now, Byzantium was the eastern province of the Roman Empire.
Were they involved in the Christian Crusades?
Pardon me?
Were they involved in the Christian Crusades, or was that?
Yes. Yeah, definitely going to get into that in a second. They were definitely Christianity in that region of the world. And the Byzantium Empire, they actually wanted Khazaria to submit to Christianity, and the Islamic to Islam. So, excuse me here, I have trouble seeing. I don't know if my eyes are blurry today, so you gotta bear with me. So what happened actually, they found themselves flanked by Islam on one side and Christianity on the other. It was a precarious position with two major world powers. Now, the Khazars themselves were very formidable because at that point in time, they also spread beyond the border. But what they did was they chose a very unusual yet politically astute way of resisting both the Western pressure to become Christian and the Eastern to adopt Islam. So what they did, they rejected both. Now, what both sides understood, they had a lot of knowledge and a lot of respect for Judaism. So they understood that on one hand, which Khazars understood that if they were to submit themselves to the Roman Empire, it meant the dependence on, or actually they could have became the ecclesiastical vassal of the Roman Empire, which they didn't want. Or on the other hand, a spiritual dependence on the leaders of Muslim at that time, which was Caliph at that time. So, so it was more logical to embrace that third choice, which was uncommitted to either of the two, which worked for them. So that adoption of Judaism was a political move, really. At the same time, it was, as I said earlier, it was respected by Muslims and the Christians alike. And that was about 740 AD at the time. And so,
hey Terry, didn't you mention in our previous conversation that it was suggested to them to become to embrace Judaism?
No. Actually, at that particular time, even though those two particular empires were theocratic, the choosing of a religion was really a political move as well. So no, it wasn't that. It was either of the two. Because at that particular time, you had the Islamic sweeping up to North Africa, up to Western Europe. And what happened, what was going on, they were forming in a military, and I'm talking about the Muslim, what was called a big pincer movement. If you read the Art of War, it talks about that. It's like a movement to flank the enemy in like a huge pincer, like the insect close in the enemy. That was a real situation. So to stave off annihilation, you understand, by specifically the Muslims, and on the other hand, the eastern province Byzantium, which was the eastern province of the Roman Empire. So,
when did it come? When did it come into play that they basically erased their own history and adopted the history of the biblical Israelites?
Well, actually, that was a Zionist movement in and of itself around 1897. That came later.
So this really happened this is something that happened in recent history.
Yes, in terms of that. That was a political movement of Zionism. That was specifically to find a home, because by that time they had been dispersed all over Europe at that particular time. See, that's where, they were in Lithuania, they were in Poland, they were in Hungary, they were in Turkey, and many times the Khazarian Jews were they segregated themselves from anybody else. But what they were finding out as it got into the 13th and 14th centuries, they were prohibited from buying land. The place that they ended up were the usury in terms of where the money was. They were where they could, well, they were doing a lot of things with the money. They were helping royal houses in the Western Europe and England. They were people who dealt with, high taxes, those kinds of things, charging high interest rates for things, and they made a lot of money, a lot. That was around the time where feudalism was the system in the world, where you had the king, you had the barons that had the land, the working class was the vassals in Western Europe at that particular time, and so they tilled the land for the food, and they did the work, and in return, they were protected by the barons and kings. Actually, the kings owned everything, but the barons were the ones that were the lords. So that was a situation in a feudalist economic system at that particular time, and there were usuries at that particular time. Wherever the money was, that's where they were. They were in banking. Like I say, they were in taxes. They handled that. So, so when the world went to capitalism, you kind of know where they were, which is really why they have prominence now in terms of where the money is today.
I'm just here shaking my head because it's like, most of us know, know one of the, unfortunately, it's a stereotype about Jews is that, they're always where the money is, and they always have the money, and it's like this is something that is really in their DNA from way, 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 way back.
Right.
But it's the thing is that, even when they adopted this, this political thing with the Zionists in the 1800s, I guess to me, I'm trying to figure out how they made the world believe that they had turned from black to white.
Right.
That's the part that has always puzzled me. And you'll have people who are Jewish who give excuses like, that's our hair and everything. And I'm just laughing because when they do like, these genealogies and everything, it does lead them back to, a specific people, but nothing shows that they have any more African in them than any other European people, which would, should lead people to question whether they really are the actual people that came from that land. I'm just saying.
Right. Well, the fact that, and let me gather my thoughts here.
Right quick, Terry, I love what you're saying.
I'm sorry, Angel. What was that?
I said I love what you are saying.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just getting started in terms
I'm
of.
gonna let you continue. I'm gonna mute as well.
Oh, okay, no problem. Okay, let me give me a sec here. So, as the Khazar Empire started to disintegrate, you had migrations that really started as a trickle, moving moving westward, actually, into Eastern Europe, into places like predominantly Poland and Hungary, Turkey. Some people did go east to Russia, but by and large, they went to these Eastern European countries, and they're pretty spread out. They were people who were segregating, excuse me, and they actually lived in ghettos because they wanted to be on their own in terms of. But they were very hardworking people. There's no doubt about it. And each of these places that they were in, Lithuania is another one as well, into Germany and Great Britain. Now there was some persecution against these particular Khazars, and I think that reflects in terms of what was felt as time went on into the modern era. They were spread out, but their land was Khazaria. Where you get into this belief that they came out of Egypt, those things were established after Israel really was a nation state. By 1947, after the British Mandate, after World War I, 1920, around that time, to 1947, they handed the matter to the UN, and they released Palestine from the British Mandate, and the UN partitioned. They had the final say in terms of the partition, something we didn't go over the other night. The UN partitioned Palestine into Israel. But and I'm really skipping around because it's really, really important to understand. They use that to their advantage because, yes, I mean, people were being persecuted for who they were, but there were people who were converts, though. Now, as we know it right now, they're not the actual Jews in terms of the people who came out of Egypt. But that wasn't the thing at all. The Theodore Herzl, and this was really the search for another homeland was something that was really an idea even before that. But when Herzl got a hold of it, he wrote this book in 1895, and it was setting forth the situation that the Jews had in that world at that particular up until that point, and how they were being kicked out of certain countries, and physical violence, these kind of things. And I think the reason why, as much as I can ascertain, was the fact that because they were usuries, because they were the middlemen, and some of the troubles that sort of went down in terms of the people who had and people who didn't. Well, there were people who were coming into these countries, but they weren't native, but they ran everything in terms of what things cost, how much they were going to pay, in terms of what the interest rate was. So they were usuries. And I think that tended to, in my opinion, upset a lot of folks because, these people were guests in these countries. They weren't native to them. And I think that's what really, how that really started. That I think on one hand, they see it as persecution. But on the other hand, the people from these native countries are saying, look, basically, we don't want you telling us what to do in our own land. So I guess it's two sides to that. But Western imperialism took that and made it appear that these people were just being persecuted just because they were Jews. That was the lead in to get a Jewish homeland. Now, there were several choices on that. There was Uganda, and this is something that Theodore Herzl worked on from 1895 to 1905, the year of his death. Also, Argentina was considered. So it really had nothing to do with this biblical prophecy of fulfillment of the Jews that came out of Egypt. That's why people need to understand this is a totally different movement. It's a political movement in and of itself. But they did use the Jewish people, but they really felt, starting with Theodor Herzl, the father of Zionism, that anti-Semitism couldn't be fought. So he effectively, in the beginning, sort of turned his back on the Jews who were being persecuted in these particular countries because of their standing in these particular areas that I just mentioned. So he didn't care about anti-Semitism, okay? But the state of Israel kind of uses that to sort of, in my opinion, pent a religion to get, people in terms of their favor, in terms of the support they get from the United States, Great Britain, and world opinion in terms of their position. It kind of solidifies their position. So, but prior to that, leading into the First World War, it could have been any of those places, but none of them were really feasible. They spoke to everybody. Theodor Herzl spoke to the Ottoman Turks. He spoke to Germany at that particular time, before World War One. He spoke to Great Britain. Anybody that had authority who would listen to him at that particular time. He was trying to get a patron to secure a homeland. That was his sole purpose, and the Zionist sole purpose after he passed away in 1905. The World Zionist Organization that he started, when they went forward, that's what it was. Going into, even though in 1917 the British issued the Balfour Declaration, they still spoke with everybody. They didn't really, it wasn't really based on any loyalty of anyone. Whoever could really help them secure a homeland, specifically Palestine, that's who they went with. It even got to the point, even in 1933, when the World Zionist Organization, and this is years after Herzl died, and they took it a little further, they started collaborating with the Nazis as well. But this is the German Zionists that did this. They didn't want to really have anything to do with the Jews. They wanted Palestine, okay? And that was their sole purpose in terms of trying to garner some support, because they didn't have a military at that particular point to sort of go in there and take it as they got later on from the British, and to a lesser extent, United States. So that was really the thing. So they used the Jewish people sort of to get audience, because number one, the Nazis didn't want them in Germany at all, because they weren't of the blood and it wasn't of the soil. So they didn't have any problems, the Third Reich, talking to the Zionists. But they also, as you know, were talking to Great Britain. This is after the Balfour Declaration. And so it just so happened that Great Britain, after the fall of the Third Reich, had the wherewithal at that particular time, because Ottoman Turks were already beat back. In fact, by the way, a lot of people don't know that Palestine had made a deal with Great Britain during World War I that in order for them to help defeat the Ottomans, that they would be granted their independence. And so they were double-crossed themselves by Great Britain with this Balfour Declaration. They totally rejected it. Their parliament, the parliament at that particular time in Palestine, the Arabs, they totally rejected. But at the same time, during late 19th century, all the way up until 1948, you had these people coming in there. they were encroaching more and more. By 1945, the British started arming these gangs. Stern Gang, I mentioned these the other day, the Haganah, the Palmaks, and the Ergun. And once they were militarized, by 1948, 700,000 to 800,000 Palestinians were expelled from their land. See, these people, and this is what the Balfour Declaration did. The Balfour Declaration effectively made a minority sovereign over majority. And interesting to note that anywhere these people have been, whether it's been South Africa or whether it's been occupied Palestine or other areas, they still have sovereign control as a minority. Yet the West always talks about majority rule. So you see how they turn the principle of majority rule on its head. When they're not numerous or when they are a minority, they still in control. So that's really what happened. And as I said earlier, once that flag went up, the UN partitioned it, 1948, they became a state. But they were allowed to have institutions prior. The UN was allowing them to get institutions that made them ready to have a nation state at that particular time. Yet the people who were already there, who already was under their theoretical sovereignty, were being undermined and weren't allowed to actually improve their position in their own land. So, you know, it was definitely land theft, no doubt about it. It got to the point where the sentiment was and is the so-called Jews or the Khazars' authority over approximate that which was the sovereignty of those who are indigenous to Palestine. And that's the injustice that we're seeing.
Yeah, and the people that were indigenous to Palestine were not just Muslims, it was Christians and Muslims that were living there side by side, not bothering each other.
Right. Absolutely. Under Palestine sovereignty.
Exactly.
They've always been numerous there. And they had their own government as well. They were never strong enough to fend off those who invaded them. Hence the Ottoman Empire, hence Great Britain, the British Mandate, and of course the Zionists. See, the Zionist movement culminated in securing Palestine as a nation state. But on the other hand, the imperialist powers saw that as a strategic place in that part of the world for their aims, for their annexationist aims, and the aim to destabilize Pan-Arabism, which was something that they were discussing themselves to unify the Arab states into a bloc. You know, because you had other nation states that were doing the same thing during that particular time. We're talking about the 30s and the 40s, especially after World War I. Now we just go back real quick to the Treaty of Versailles that was in Paris. The Paris Peace Conference. Well, it's important to note there that in that treaty, Germany was hit hard. They had to give up 10% of their international holdings in terms of their colonies. They had to pay restitution to the Allied powers. I mean, they really was hit hard. That really set up the conditions for them getting into World War II, the Third Reich, really, because that really, they didn't take that very well. I mean, they had to take the responsibility for starting World War I, and so they paid for it. It really hurt their economy as well, and I think those of us who understand what happened in Germany with the rise of Adolf Hitler, before that, they had a serious financial and economic problem there. Meanwhile, the Khazar Jews were usurers. They still controlled all the money, all the banks. You understand? All the businesses of importance. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you have to understand how people resented that. You understand? And so that's what you had. You had a real resentment toward what happened in 1919 with that treaty. At the same time, what they felt was going on in Germany. Of course, I'm not at all trying to any length justify the killing of anyone, whether it's 1 million or 6 million. If there's one person that went to the gas chamber, there's one too many. But the fact of the matter is that's what they felt. That's what they were justified at that particular point, as far as I felt in empathy in terms of what they were thinking at that time in the general sense.
Yeah, and it does kind of, I mean, what happened in World War I kind of sets up what happened in World War II.
Right. I mean, it was something that it was at some point it was going to happen. You can see now in hindsight.
Yeah, because the Germans were blamed for World War I, which caused them to start World War II.
Right. Yeah.
So this time the blame was justly put on their shoulders.
Right.
Right or wrong.
And that kind of resentment led up to what happened, that Holocaust. I mean, the numbers are disputed. Some people say it wasn't 6 million. Some people say it never happened. But I mean, obviously they had German death camps.
I think that we know. I mean, people who say that it didn't happen, I think that that's foolish. I mean, they're as foolish as the people who say that the Armenian Holocaust never happened. I mean, the Turkey refuses to admit that they slaughtered those people for their land.
Right.
I mean, and they skew the numbers on how many Armenians were killed in that one. So I think, it's probably somewhere between the 1 million and the 6 million. We know that there were definitely people in those camps.
Absolutely.
But we also know that everyone in those camps was not Jewish.
True.
So that's where it comes into question as to how many people in the camps were actually Khazar Jews versus other people who were also put into the concentration camps.
Right. And I couldn't find the demographics in terms of the population racial breakdown. I was looking for that just for that reason, sis. I couldn't find it.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that information has been destroyed because obviously they wanted to hide what they did.
Absolutely.
So I mean, but we all know that when they did the concentration camps, they were looking at a number of groups. It's just that the Khazar Jews were the largest portion of the people that were on their list.
Yes. So when the Zionists come in, they use that particular situation of that plight as really a way to, again, garner the support, looking for a benefactor to secure a homeland. But they didn't care about, it was really just something that they did in terms of getting support, but they didn't mean that at all. In fact, they felt that anti-Semitism at that point for what it represented, something that shouldn't have been fought. They turned their backs on those particular people in the first place. In 1933, there was a Zionist-Nazi collaboration, which led to death of whatever amount there were. in Germany, so they really pimped that situation. The Zionists pimped and this is just my opinion, pimped the Judaic religion, because it's our religion really that they converted to. But the Zionists obviously are neither Judaic nor even believe in the existence of God. It was really atheistic sort of political movement. Even Theodor Herzl was somebody who was an atheist himself. He didn't do it because he thought that he was fulfilling biblical prophecy at all. But they did use that though, and it was roundly believed by a lot. And it's just a word on Theodor Herzl, because he in the late 19th century, early 20th century, he garnered a lot of notoriety because of his writings. And apparently he was popular, which is something I didn't know until I really looked and researched him. He was popular around the world. And so that got him audience with the Ottoman Turks, not the actual emperor, but some high-ranking officials, with the I think it was Bismarck at that time. We're talking about the early 1900s, Bismarck of Germany, the British Empire. I mean, he got introduced to a lot of people who listened to him, and he was very, very popular with a lot of the Khazars. But he used them. He wasn't doing it because they were Jews, though. I think that's what people don't understand. That's the difference between Zionism and and someone who's actual Judaic. They didn't have a homeland because they left their homeland. They were ran out, which the Mongols actually ran them out around 965.
That would be Attila that would be Genghis Khan, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In terms of what my research says, 965 AD, Khazaria, they were done. Now they had pockets of tribes that were still there, but they were done as a nation at that particular point. So now at that point you had major migrations going into Western Europe, major migrations going into Poland, Hungary, and Turkey at that particular time. So they were spread out, no doubt about it. They were not native to any of those nations at that particular time, and so, but he used that to have people identify with the Zionist movement as if it was one and the same.
Yeah, and it's the crazy thing is that I'm like, in my head, it's like our knowledge of the history of the world and African history is so destroyed and distorted that they were able to do this.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, there was a monopoly of information.
Clearly, all of these people who claim, who claim to be biblical scholars and everything, let this one slide on right on past them. Absolutely.
Now, again, he made constructive use of propaganda as well. He's definitely a propagandist as well. Very adroit in doing that. And so, with the support that he had behind him, the Zionist movement obviously went far. It went further after he died in 1905. He had a bad heart, but
he
went a long way.
Yeah, and I think my thing is not that this people did not deserve a home. It's just my issue is that the way that it was done was deceptive, and they actually stole the legacy of another people who don't even know probably that that's their legacy, other than the people in Ethiopia.
Right. Exactly.
Because the Jews were spread out all over Africa.
Right.
You know, and that was based on, and that's all of the things that happened. I mean, they were already starting to come under European domain and other people's domain during the time of Jesus, of Yeshua. It was already happening right then, and it just went further after that. Because they were always looking for an earthly king to come and save them.
Right. But in terms of a homeland, I think the defeat of Germany, World War II, to the victors go the spoil. That's where they should have took their state. They should have took their state there. To be honest with you, it would have been justified based on what happened to them as well there in that particular region of the world. That's really not taking someone's land that did nothing to them.
Yeah, and to me, I don't even understand why that didn't happen, because that would have been justifiable restitution to them.
And I think when we look at imperialism, I think that we see that obviously there was a dual purpose of it in terms of what their interest was at that particular time as well, and how they used that. So it was a dual purpose in terms of, yes, the Zionists, you know, they got to take somebody's land and had superpowers that were benefactors to guarantee that, but also the superpowers got an ally in that part of the world and a strategic ally that they could develop, as we see today. It has developed quite well for them. So I think they understood in terms of what could happen as time went on, and how I feel that they were trying to shape the order of nations. And so I think that's why, obviously they knew that was a lie. But see, that's the thing about political expediency. They don't really care about the truth in terms of who it hurts. And it hurt people who are insignificant to them. Obviously, we were on one hand facing Jim Crow in the United States and colonization in Africa. I mean, we had no power anyway. Still don't today, obviously, as a people and collective, but not for long. But essentially then, they had us on lockdown everywhere. So no one's going to, even if they knew this particular truth, I don't think they were going to stop that and say, well, hold on, wait a minute, this is right. We have to set it. No, they're going to do what's in their interest.
Yeah, and I think you're correct about that. I think you're correct. I said I think you're correct about that, because I don't think that anywhere in any of their thoughts would have been anything that was going to give more land or more power to people of color in that region, because they had been trying to, you know, secretly, you know, keep a hold in that region and make it look like they have given independence, as it still stands.
Right.
As it still stands. Most of Africa that appears to be, you know, under their own sovereign rule, they're not really under their own sovereign rule because they don't control the money.
Or the resources, the raw material.
Exactly. You know, the continent of Africa and the countries in Africa, most of the majority of the resources in the world are on the continent of Africa, but the people on the continent of Africa do not have control of those resources. Other parts of the world, the United States, countries in Europe, Australia, everybody has control of it but them.
Right. Because ever since the late 19th century, those resources have fed the economy of the West and other nations, and they still do today. People don't understand to what extent it does.
Because we don't have our own resources, so we're stealing them from Africa. We don't have our own resources, so we steal them from Africa.
Yeah, and capitalism usually seeks a more efficient, more systematic way of exploitation, and that's the nature of the system the economic system that we're in. It has to have something to exploit. You can't just exist within its own borders. It has to go beyond. That's what is. It has to go. And by 1917, the whole world was carved up at that particular point. So you didn't have a place that was uninhabited for these particular Khazars to go in the first place, because they lost their country. They were wiped out, as we mentioned earlier, 965 by forces of Genghis Khan, the Mongols, and that the only thing that could have happened them to usurp a sovereign people and take their land, just like what happened here in Native American, you know what I mean, and really to a large extent Africa during the colonial period as well. All that coincided at the same time. This was in a way how they were shaping the political and social order of the earth.
Yeah,
I think, and so as wrong, as evil as that was, to them it was more justified because they want, they're a very small minority people. I think they, even though they probably they don't talk about that, but I think they're conscious of the fact that they are. And so they really almost, for them to even have any kind of rule as a minority, they're like 8 to 10% of the world population all put together. So what tends to happen is you're going to have things that are a little more draconian to stay in power, even though it's unreasonable and illogical to the eye, you know what I mean, and to the sensibilities, because it's in their interest. They don't want anyone else to do it, mind, but they're going to try to do that because they're in position. And I posed this as a rhetorical question the other day when we were talking about this: is who has the power to stop them at this point? If you were to take a logistical account of power balance, who can tell them to step in and say, "Look, you're not going to do this"? Nobody.
Exactly. It's gonna take the biblical Armageddon. That's really what's going to happen. It's going to take the biblical Armageddon to get them out of there. That's what's going to happen.
Right.
And that's why, and that's what I'm saying. All of this stuff that they're doing, it's like, because I am spiritual, and because I know that even though, people say, well, you don't take the things in the Bible literal, but a lot of those writings were prophetic, and you look at all of the stuff and you see some of that stuff that's in the New Testament, like in the book of Revelations, and you're like, you think it's talking about somebody else, but it's talking about the people who are sitting right there in the state of Palestine. It is saying, it straight up says, who call themselves Jews but are not, because what they're talking about, what the Bible is talking about, is that they're not the people that God chose.
No.
And it says it right there. It says it right there in the word. But the thing is that you have to really know all of this history, because nowhere in the Bible does it say that Israel ever gets back that land until the end. The Battle of Armageddon is when the true people of, the true Israelites will actually get that land back. And they will be in conflict until that time. And that's why we're still having all of this conflict. That's why there is no peace.
Right. So I always make the point that, their Messiah is not Jesus. Their Messiah was Arthur J. Balfour. And by the way, that particular document, and I have to apologize because I couldn't get a copy of it today for some reason, where I was researching it online and locked me out and I couldn't get it. But we can still talk about what it says. But
I can let me see if I can pull it up.
Okay, but I wanted to mention the fact that it was more hands that actually was into crafting those words in that made up that document, those 67 words, than just Arthur Balfour. It was really the fine hand of the Zionists. And as a matter of fact, Balfour himself was an anti-Semite.
Really?
Yes. even though he, you know, he put his name Secretary of the Colonies for British government, but yes, the man was an anti-Semite. That was really still using the plight of the Jews as they were spread out because of the migrations. They weren't spread out because they were thrown to the wind so much, but the fact of the matter was, you know, they were defeated, as we said a couple of times earlier, and the migrations forced them out of Khazari, even though some remnants did hang on as much as they could. But the fact of the matter is, mass migrations went to Eastern and Western Europe, as we see through history. So, but he understood that as well. He understood the strategic benefits that could come out of that as well in the future, how they could develop that in the future. And it's exactly what it was. So it was a strategic move, it was a political move, as I said earlier, in terms of how they were shaping the order of.
Well, I actually pulled up the document. Let me see, but I don't know how to share.
That's okay,
but I can read. I can read. Yeah, I can read what it said probably better today because I have it blown up this time. But this is it's dated. It says Foreign Office, November 2nd, 1917. Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet. His Majesty's government views with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object. It being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of the existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation. That's it.
Right. Exactly. And even then, they continue to court possible patrons of other countries as well. They just didn't stay. In fact, at one time, they fought the British at that one point because they were attacking the Zionists at that time, were being militarized after the British mandate, the 1920 mandate. This coincided with the League of Nations, the ill-fated League of Nations at that particular point. And I believe Woodrow Wilson was the U.S. president, but obviously that didn't last. The League of Nations didn't last. But they were attacking then militarily, and the British Army had to go in there and get a handle on it at that particular point in time. Now, they were allowed to wholesale by 1945. They were allowed after World War II. I mean, they could let it rip at that point, for lack of a better term, and that's what they did. But at that point, they didn't want it to look bad to their allies at that particular point in time. But what really that particular document did was really three things that jumped out at me. It showed that their right to exist, their so-called right to exist, it wasn't based on any hypothetical origins of a Jewish people, one, nor on any covenant with Abraham, two, and it was based on more of international law that UN partitioned Palestine, starting with, of course, the precursor, the Balfour Declaration. So their Messiah is, this is an insult when I say this to them, but I say this because, again, when people try to use the covenant with God and Abraham, I have to say these things that we're talking about. It was not even based, as you well know, and you so intelligently mentioned, wasn't based on any of those things. But you know,
and that's the sad thing is that, you know, I'm going to say that the majority of the people that are Khazar Jews, because that's who they are. Because right. You have to make the distinguish. Yeah, you have to make the distinction. The majority of them have no idea. They have no idea. They believe that they are. I don't know how, but they do.
Out of Egypt. Moses led them, yeah.
They believe
now,
because they have been led to believe this.
Now, when you get into the secular state of Israel and how they've used propaganda for the last 70, 75 years, then you get into this right of return, you get into this out of Egypt myth about being led into Egypt by Joshua and that kind of thing. And people tend to believe that, and unfortunately, that conflation has spread to the mindsets like wildfire.
But the thing is that the Bible clearly says that the nation of Israel left Egypt and went to the land of Canaan. They wandered the desert for 40 years and then ended up in the land of Canaan, which was actually in Africa. So they never were in this land in the first place. But you know, I digress.
Right, but that
I digress.
Well, it shows you how effective propaganda is, doesn't it?
I'm just saying that the real place that the ancient. I mean, yes, we know that Jerusalem is, you know, where they ended up, you know, because they had spread out, but that's not where they actually started. That's not actually the promised land. People assume that that's where they were, but if you look in the Old Testament, nobody ever there's no mention of Jerusalem. Right.
Well, and that's how effective propaganda is. Exactly.
I mean, it doesn't.
They've had a long time.
Well, I take that back. It does come up, but it comes up, you know, after David, you know, because but the Jerusalem was the tribe of Judah. It wasn't even all of it was, we're talking about the land where one of the 12 tribes went, because they split from the rest of the tribes. I'm like, but don't take me because if you go into history and stuff, I can go into all of that kind of stuff as to where the original people were. Yeah, Judah split themselves. I mean,
I'm familiar with it. I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
In terms of what they've set up this right of return. Mm-hmm. Anyone who has kinship with that particular falsehood can claim citizenship in Israel, and they really wasn't talking about the Ethiopian people, the Africans. But however, some of them are there, although many of them
I mean, and that's what I'm saying, that there was part of the Israelites were clearly in the land that is present day Palestine. We're not even denying that the Hebrew people were in that land. We know that they were in that land, but from that land they didn't migrate to Europe. I'm just saying.
Well, these are the things that Siemens.
These are the things that perplex. These are the things that perplex biblical scholars, I'm sure.
Right, exactly, because it had nothing to do with that. These are the three things that they really care about. Though. You know, I agree with you, and I'm familiar with what you say. These are the three things: the essential requirements of a nation: it's a country, common language, government, and an army. That's what their benefactors care about, and that's what their benefactors give them the tune of $8 to $10 billion yearly to promulgate that map. That's really why. If
they wanted to unite, they wanted to have a common place for their people to call home, no matter where they are in the world. So I get that part. It's just, I guess,
they took someone's land.
Me are the falsehoods that they used to make that happen.
Right. Yeah, it's just straight up land. Right, absolutely, that's right. But see, they tend to give that lesser importance and greater importance of what I just mentioned.
Yep.
That's the only thing they really care about. That's really how they attach themselves to British imperialism. And if their benefactors, United States and Great Britain, pulled their aid tomorrow, it would sink in 24 hours. It wouldn't last on its own. They have to continue to use the taxpayers' dollars, yours and mine.
That's why it was very important for them that Donald Trump became president. It was to their benefit, because if someone else had become president, they would still have that tense relationship with Israel that the United States has had for decades.
Right. So they're held together by international treaty, political reasons of imperialist advance, and strategic emplacement. Those are the things that matter at this particular point. They don't have no. That's true. What you're saying is true, but it has a mitigating presence. I just want you to know that's why no one talks about that. They only want to talk about in terms of what that secular state is doing in Tel Aviv. You understand? And so that's the problem. Only a stronger force.
Yeah, because the Israel that is there, that's a secular state. That's not the religious state of Israel that God is
not
talking about.
Right. But I agree with what you're saying. But the fact of the matter is, this is what people hear now, especially these church folks, as I mentioned, especially black folks.
Yeah.
They think that's all it's ever been. They have all these, the political considerations, strategic considerations, military. They don't, all them things, most of them have no knowledge. And almost, it's like almost they think they're committing a sin finding them out. It shows you the level of ignorance that about.
Well, it's just about being, it's about being woke. It's about being, it's about being woke and having knowledge. And, it's not, us having this knowledge is not changing what's going on there, but it gives us a better understanding of what's going on there and understanding the real reasons things are going on there versus what we thought were the reasons.
I think only a stronger force can dislodge it. That stronger force can be something that would quicken, the pace would be quickened with a unified Africa.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It would take the continent of Africa unifying. It literally because that's the only way, isn't it wild to you that the largest continent has the least power, and the rest of us, we're just countries. We're not even continents. We're just parts of continents. But we have much more, that little teeny country like Great Britain and the United States, which is not really a big country, that these two countries have all this power, and that one continent has so little power. I'm just, as you think about it.
Right. So, I mean, you can always kind of debunk the charge that they're always victims. You can always say, okay, you guys are this particular. I guess I'm not really sure what their numbers are in America today, but they have more power in the Democratic Republican parties than we do. They get money than we do. Yet we have more need of it and get less. So it just debunks who's the victim in terms of these poor Jewish people. You have to look at it that way, because it just goes with the conflation and the falsehoods that's been told. But let me just make it clear right now that efforts are being made to unify the country. This is not out of words. There are forces there.
I know that it's going on, because like I told you, I know people. I know other people other than you. Like I know people that are from countries over there that live here, that go back and forth between here and there to try to strengthen, the country that they came from, so that I know Nigerians, Kenyans, exactly that. But that's what it's taking. It's really taking people from the countries there, coming out of those countries, getting the knowledge that they need and taking it back there.
Right. And the forces right now, the latent forces that are strengthening themselves are in the revolutionary mass organizations. That's really the epicenter of the change. It's going to come from those particular.
I agree with what Matt is saying. He is. I do agree that he's making it about religion, and that's why that's one of the reasons why I'm talking about this in this live, so that we understand that this is really not about religion. Has nothing. It really is not about the Judaism. It's really not about Judaism. Has nothing to do with it.
But they'll keep telling you that to disarm you.
Yes. So that's
disarm you, and
that's the reason why we're having this, because this has nothing. It everything that's going on over there has nothing to do with that, even though that's what they want you to think.
It has nothing to do with this chosen race orthodoxy. So just to make a point, has to be thoroughly understood. It has nothing to do with that. It has something to do with having a standing army, having a government, having the leverage to actually enforce your will on people whose land they took from you. That's what really matters to these folks.
Yep.
And that's where it's limited at. Now,
it's about having it's about having a political foothold in that region. And that's basically what it is, by being allies with the state of Israel.
And they're attempting to make sure that every Arab country has a titular head that's a puppet. So that's why they don't like the president of Iran, I think. Because anybody who's independent minded is going to be attacked. We see what happened to Muammar Gaddafi. We've seen in the 60s throughout Africa, just coup d'etat. All of the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the South African government being compromised. Do you know? I think I mentioned there's an enclave of Caucasians that have prohibited blacks from coming in their own country. They can't come in this particular. I don't know if you found that out.
No. Latu was in one of our lives, but the time that we're having a live, he's at work when we're doing this. So I'm gonna jump in. So if he does come in, I can probably type something to him in the chat. But I'm gonna jump into his live probably tomorrow, because they don't celebrate Thanksgiving in South Africa, so he will be on. He'll be on. He comes on like at an ungodly hour for us here in California. He comes on like at 6 o'clock, between 6 and 7 sometimes. But I'll be up because I'll be cooking. So I'm gonna jump into his live and I'm gonna ask him about that, what he knows about that, because he lives in South Africa. He is South African who actually lives in South Africa. So
you can see whether.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, you get a picture of where the injustice actually is.
Yeah, I'm going
in
to ask
terms
him if
of
he really knows about that, because I know he does.
right. In terms of who has the power and who doesn't. You know what I mean? So I just hope that clears it up for a lot of people that are listening in to what we're
Yeah,
talking about. And they can
what's
verify.
going on is
fact,
all about
I'll ask-
power. It's not about religion. It's just about power.
I would ask them, insist on them to verify what I'm saying themselves.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to ask him if he knows about that. And
right.
Lutu will definitely talk about it, because he's been in other chats, and we've talked about the human trafficking, and he's given us some insight on some things that have happened right there in South Africa, where they've used victims of human trafficking to help build something in regards to the next FIFA.
Right.
With
so let me just mention that you look at the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, that's a Zionist organization. You have to understand that. There's organizations like that all over the West.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. The Anti-Defamation League in the United States, I know that's run by the Zionists. There's an anti-defamation. I don't know if it still exists now, but they had anti-defamation in the United States, like during the 20th century. And if you roll it back, because all of that's all rolled into this Illuminati thing, because it has the Zionists involved in that stuff.
Yeah. And they're still using the Jewish persecution. Right?
I think they changed the name of it to something else here. To something Alliance. It's called something Alliance now. Okay. But it's the same.
There's a lot. Also, yeah, there's multiple organizations.
But it's still, it still came out of that, because I forget. Right. I was doing things, reading things, and I'm researching about the New World Order, and Zionism comes up in that. So that's why I tell people that they need to really be woke about things that are happening, because all of this it ties into the New World Order movement.
Right. See, originally they just wanted some land, and of course by that time there was nothing that was uninhabited for them. They didn't care. It did not necessarily have to be Palestine, which kind of debunks the return to Israel lie, basically. Again, it could have been Uganda, it could have been Kenya, by the way, or even Argentina. So people have to understand that was more feasible, because it was under a British mandate and then UN authority, and it was more feasible for them to take the land from someone else that had been there since time immemorial to go into Africa, because by that time the anti-colonial movement was heating up, and the colonial countries was having problems controlling Africans at that time. So it wasn't feasible to transplant those people with Khazars in there like that. It probably would have quickened the anti-colonial movement even faster. So I think they understood they couldn't go into Uganda, at least for that reason, the first reason alone. But they also wanted to try Kenya. Kenya was also colonized by
right. And that's what I was going to say. I was going to ask the question: how much of Africa is still? How much of Africa is still technically, colonized? I know obviously Egypt is not, but I know some of the other countries that appear to be independent may not be, because you can see through the currency that they still have some of the colonization things going on in those countries, like like you said, Kenya, Nigeria. We know even though South Africa is quote unquote independent, it's not really.
Let me answer your question. They have what's called a nominal independence. They're in de jure, but they're not in fact. I'll give you a quick definition of neocolonialism. This is what you have here. This is what.
That's what I mean under the neo colonization. That's what I'm talking about, because there's not that many that are truly sovereign countries anymore on the continent.
No, none of them. You have government and multi national corporate interests, and all the materials that's consequential to industrialization in Africa, which doesn't exist, is controlled from foreign firms, foreign companies, foreign government. So even down to the banks, the currencies, and even the goods and services that you buy from the stores are controlled by foreign.
So I mean, because to me, that's pivotal. That's kind of pivotal in the fact that no one has been able to challenge, because even though you might have, a block in Saudi, in the Saudi Arabia and Iraq and all of that are the different tribes that have kind of linked together to keep those nations together. That's still not a big enough force. But if we had truly sovereign, like if the majority of Africa was sovereign versus the minority of Africa was sovereign, I think it would be a different situation than we see. But I also think that they have been kept purposely the way that they are now.
Because the raw materials feed the economies of the Western countries. That's why. They're too dependent.
I think it's been done purposely to keep them from being stronger.
Right.
Because if
they would actually change.
Yeah, if they were stronger, then because basically, even though they have Israel, so to speak, they also have almost the entire continent of Africa.
Right. Where a majority of the people are. Notice that?
Really,
yet they have no power. You see the contrast there? Yet these foreigners, the people who have stolen Palestinian land, have more power than all of Africa. Let me just read you this, what neocolonialism is.
Okay.
This is our definition of it. I am an extremist terrain. So it goes, the essence of neocolonialism is that the state which is subject to it is in theory independent. It has all the outward trappings of international sovereignty, but in reality, its economic system and thus its political policy is directed from the outside. All these policies that they have in there are controlled by those particular neo-colonial countries that were once physically colonial countries before the actual change in terms of when they started getting electing and putting in blacks heads of state. All of them are puppets, though, sis. Every last one of them. There's no. Robert Mugabe was the last one. He was the last one at this particular time. They're all controlled by CIA, which is. And see, that's what
I'm saying. It's like the continent of Africa and Israel. I'm going to bring that into it too, because it's pretty much connected. Are not really under the rule of the people, even though Israel appears to be. It's not really. Because of all of that was done strategically, and then they kept all of the things going that were already going on on the continent. Even though you see the African people trying to fight against it, trying to regain their lands and stuff. But it's being made difficult for them because they don't want them to have their own lands. I mean,
even inside,
yeah,
even inside these, even inside these nations, though,
yeah. I mean,
they've allowed foreign.
even especially the sub-Saharan. I'm like, where they're trying to, bring back. I mean, I looked at the thing that DOD had on Zimbabwe, and I was just shaking my head. And I know it seems like I know we're going off topic, guys. From what we were talking about, but all of this is kind of interrelated because that entire region of the world is being controlled, primarily by Europe and the United States, really, including including Israel, even though it doesn't seem like it.
Right. Israel is really a semi-independent annex to the Arab world that's controlled by the imperialist powers. Because I mean, it's easy to see, because if they ever came down, which they never will, unless they're dislodged, but if it came down to them pulling their support, Israel would sink in 24 hours. It couldn't stand on its own. It has to have the benefactors constantly, which is why they take more and more. Well, let me just put it this way: that's your American dollars at work.
Mm-hmm. I believe that.
Everybody in the chat understand that. Exactly. So,
and I mean, you guys, I mean, I mean, I may not seem like I'm a controversial person because I am artsy, but I'm also a nerdy girl, and I'm really into knowing what's really going on versus what people are telling us. And this is something that's like, you've got pockets that know about it, and I mean, you have people talking about it on YouTube, but they're only giving you it from a slanted perspective. We're trying to give you guys the most unbiased perspective of just what's really going on, without taking one side or the other, so to speak.
The most revolutionary people can articulate this pretty clearly, pretty honestly to you.
Yep.
I'm one of them. And so, but let me just say that, we are working on a solution to that, sis. We have a framework for that, but we have to be organized. This is, unfortunately, it's going to be a protracted thing, because there's a lot of things that are, let's just say, right now coming into not only Africa, but every place we are, which tends to, I think, confuse our thinking, confound our thinking about what our priorities are at a particular time. Because if we just had 10% of our people, and the rest of our people can make chaos, and we would win. But the fact of the matter is, we don't even have that. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of distractions, as you can see. You can just see in the United States. I think how much more in other areas like the Caribbean and in South America and even in Africa. You even have now, and I'm just saying this because in terms of strategy, and I don't mean this personally, but you're starting to see, even in Africa, they're coming in, these churches are starting to, and even the people who are calling response, they're approximating these churches in America, in Africa.
Yep.
And I have a problem with that, only because it's a distraction, not because they shouldn't be worshiping God, but it's a distraction, and it's a Western distraction. And that's an interference in what we have to do there. And we see a mega church, we see all these things go on. It's like, oh Lord, mercy. So these people are very, very
they're very I tell people that I'm like, if you think that we do religion big, go over to Africa. They will embarrass us in the way that they, take it, be it whatever their religion is. It's, but the thing is that, and I'm all about having a relationship with God, but God also wants people to be self-sufficient and be able to take care of themselves. And
They know.
that's part of it.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, but on the other hand, I do see some of these you know, huge churches in Africa that make money come out of the air, literally, like, and I'm talking about millions of dollars that they start to put back into those economies. So I wouldn't rule out the churches that are in Africa, because they are trying to do things within the economy, but they are just a small part of the solution.
Well, the
I
problem is they're not organic to Africa in the West. It's interfering with what they already had there in terms of spiritual.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the ones that I'm talking about are ones that are organically grown, because I know one made, and
people are they're beginning. The problem is they're becoming sophisticated, but they're not working on independence. They're not working on independence. They're just working on going to church. That's the problem.
Yeah,
they need to be working on building industry, building effective.
because like one of the ones that I'm talking about, I believe they are in South Africa, and they're dealing with a lot of that. Even though apartheid is gone, it's not gone. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, yeah, people who are still in charge of economics.
Yeah,
all resources, the finances, currency, yeah, all the, so that's what I'm saying. So when you bring in that kind of cultural sort of interference, no one's going to work on being free.
And I think that's one of the reasons why you get so many of these, like you get so many of these like organizations that are in different parts of Africa that are reaching out and are wanting, you know, people, you know, here in the United States to come over there and to partner with them in a lot of the stuff. So I think that that's in line with what you're saying.
Right, but it's not revolutionary. I mean, yeah, it can do some things, but the final act is wider union of African states of all African governments, so that you can have unified policy, political structure, you have integrated economy, doing trade, export, and that way you can you can have full industrialization, which Africa is lacking. That's gonna make a problem. That's gonna make a problem.
Because that's the reason why they have to get control of things like the natural resources in their countries, because the countries that have gold, the countries that have things like gold and and diamonds and the countries in Africa that have oil, I'm like, those are the countries that need to be able to collateralize those natural resources, but they don't have access to the resources. Somebody else has claimed resources.
Foreigners.
Yes.
Foreign. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when you introduce these Western concepts into Africa, it's a distraction, and that's what it's meant to do. That's called cultural imperialism. That's what that is. And
yeah.
I see that as just forestalling the revolution that we need to start industrializing and developing the continent. Now, once that happens, it's now the rippling effect of that will affect the diaspora. You understand? So it's not just self-contained in Africa. You still need international trade.
Yeah, I agree.
You can do it based on your own. Yeah. Now you can do it based on your own interests and the interests of your people. That changes everything in terms of the political order. It changes everything. Now at that particular point, now you can start leveraging your influence. You say, no, you're not going to do this, or yes, you can, because that change. In fact, that changes not only the paradigm, but it changes the political order of the world as well. So there's a lot of benefits there. So I'm saying that has to be the commitment in terms of changing these things. People want police brutality to stop. Africa's got to be strong. We need a base, even if you never go there.
Yeah, I agree, because here's the thing. You know,
that's been a national home for all of us.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, here's the thing. It's like, even it's like the continent is paying for, they're paying for their sins of exporting us out. And they have been paying for it ever since. You know, it's like, you think about it. You think about it, because as much as they have tried, it's now it's starting to come to fruition, because I think that the people of color outside of the continent are starting to see what's really going on the continent.
Right. Well, that's only one side of it. The other side of it that we have reconciled the fact that it's got to be taken by force at some point when we're ready for armed struggle. History has always shown that at that particular point in time, that is a political act at that particular time, knowing when to fire the gun. So we know that because they've had control of it for so long, knowing it's not there, they're not going to give it up. You have these particular countries that are the neo-colonial power right now have troops garrisoned all over Africa. So they have makeshift bases now for that reason. It's not because of so much another foreign entity. It's the revolution that they're trying to
do. Because you are starting to see small collectives in different countries that are starting micro economies.
Right. So it's the African revolution that they're trying to want. A lot of people don't understand or know that. It's not so much that it's not really even. I think I mentioned this the other night. It's not any foreign power that they're really fearing. I mean, it's the Africans there that's saying, look, we want to control our land from Cape to Cairo. You know what I mean? All 12,000 square miles of the African continent and its islands.
Yeah,
it's
I agree that
it has to be independent and sovereign. That doesn't mean that it doesn't. It can't enter into international treaties and things of that nature. But you have to be able to control your interests like everyone else. We're the only people that don't have any interest, control of our own interests. And it's just ridiculous.
In a real life effect, it has to become like, the fictional Wakanda. The entire continent needs to become like that fictional country, literally. So,
I don't use that. But it would be. Well, I don't use that because I know that Marvel Comics are too white.
Yeah.
No, but that's not our creation. But I understand what you're saying. But
I'm just saying it has to be.
What we want to do.
I'm just saying the characteristics. The entire continent has to come to the point of knowing that the only way for any single country on the continent to be powerful is for them all to come together.
Yeah. So we have a framework to organize that overall, but we understand that we have a basis for unity. That's cultural unity.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're separated is the frontier borders that was drawn by those particular European powers in 1885, which is what you see there now. However, they can work in terms of, and this will take quite some doing, but it's not impossible. They would have to take their place as states in the wider union and national government under all African Union government. That's really the best way to do it, because you still have a bicameral legislature. You can still do that. You could take the best. We've done a Excuse me.
Matt is asking, are you talking about like a conglomerate?
In terms of what?
As far as
states?
Yeah. Africa, a conglomerate.
No, it would be a republic. It would be a United States of Africa under union government as a. See, we have a cultural basis, but we also have the possibility of a federalist type government as well. You could do that in Africa. You would keep the borders and do that, and so we would be united by.
Didn't they have at one point in African history a lot of feudal states?
Some were semi-feudal, but you had territories. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We were master of the territorial state. They didn't have nation states until you see that. They drew that in the back. That obviously, as we said earlier, was based on the European frontiers. They all just carved it up and said, okay, we're going to divide it this way because we need to not only stop fighting each other, but we need to fuel our economies and develop our country. This is how we're going to do it. It's just that simple. You know, from November of 1884 to I think February of 1885, and they sat down in Germany. Yeah, they said that Germany is something else. They keep popping up in history, don't they? Yeah, 18. Yeah, and they sat down and carved it up. That's how you see that today. It wasn't like you can see maps. You can look up pre-colonial maps of Africa, and then you can superimpose that on what you see today. But this is maintained through. See, they were the colonial powers were smart enough to grant independence, but they didn't go any further. The next step was Pan-Africanism, which people like Sekou Touré of Guinea and Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana was the leading two Pan-Africanists to start to understand. Julius Nyerere, Patrice Lumumba only for a week, and then he was taken out.
Yeah, Matt is talking about. Yeah, Matt, no, they are. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that the French have so much going on in there. But if you just think about it, think about how many countries in Africa that the people speak French.
14 primary countries that French colonialism and the neo-colonialists, because it just means that they have black people in charge, where at one time they had their people there. They had colonial administrations there. And then when Africans said, no, we want to control our own countries, it got to the point where a lot of them were bought out and they compromised themselves. Not all of them, but those who came and started developing their people for independence got overthrown. You'll find there's a lot of coups d'etats from anywhere from 1960. You had like 25 to 30 of them from 1960 to 1969.
Anytime that I see something going on over in some part of Africa where, where they're having elections and they're, you always wonder about when the people get it in and then immediately they're trying to get them out. I'm like, what is really going on? It's like, it's so hard for them to have stable governments.
Right. A lot of them are puppets. And when you're dependent like that and you get a lot of aid, and you're set up as an unviable state. So if they could just very well, they could disable and disrupt those countries because of the way they're set up. That's why they need to be set up in a union, in a stronger union, in an independent union. That changes. But when you got other people that's controlling your wealth, and they're extracting your wealth, right, to the tune of about $300 billion a year, and then you get these individual people getting taxpayers' dollars, and then basically taxpayers' dollars to make sure that the business arrangements continue to move slowly. Smoothly.
Yes,
I meant to say smooth.
Yes, Matt.
It's not
French. He's asking about French. Yes, they speak French.
Yeah.
In Africa.
Oh yeah. Yes. There's a French zone in Africa. Absolutely. There's a Portuguese zone in Africa as well. There's a German zone. There's an Italian. All these countries were colonial power in Africa.
Yeah.
When I said 1885, the Berlin Conference, that's when that started. Now they've had obviously different countries and different people going back and forth to Africa, but when they really started the colonization effort, at that point it was more decisive. That's the problem now, because it's still into that point. It's just they have black people who are basically doing their bidding. They're doing the same things that those particular colonial people were doing when they had their administrations in front of the blacks. But now they got black people doing the same thing. So that's why it's neo-colonialism.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, even Matt, some of a lot of my friends here on YouTube, whose channels I subscribe to that are on the continent, a lot of them speak French. They speak a little English, but their first language is French. And then, of course, a lot of them, if they're from a specific, people may speak that language as well. But a lot of them, their first language is French.
Yeah, I see what Matt was saying. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the influence, because they were in control in Africa. So even the educational system was fashioned by the colonial power. That's also a problem, because some of them don't even know if you have that happening. They're not going to tell you that you're being controlled by anybody. It will make you think that it's normal. That's why a lot of Africans don't understand when we tell them over here. They don't even understand that. Some people, their loyalties are so divided and so based on confusion that they think that it's a good thing for foreigners to come in and control their wealth. So it kind of tells you how effective colonialism is. You have that. Some people actually want you. No, we want you here to show us. Now they've been in Africa since 1885.
And see, that's why, I had the friends that I have. That's what I'm saying. I have a friend that is a member of my church who goes back over to his home country and helps to build, roads, water systems, that kind of stuff. The things that they need in order to be self-sustainable, because in a lot of the countries they have large areas that are rural, and that's the parts that need to be brought up to standards, and that's what they need in order for the countries to be able to stand on their own, is for their own people to help them to come up, up to standards. Like someone who comes over here, he may live here, but he goes home 3 times a year.
But see, when they set these particular frontiers up, they didn't really, number one, expect them to end up being independent. They thought that they would hold on to them. So when they did actually become nation states, they were unviable. You understand? In terms of what they could, because the actual borders were drawn arbitrarily to linguistic and tribal sort of borders. And you have certain people in the same tribes that are separated by these imposed borders. So it kind of threw things in chaos when they did that. The only way that you can use these particular countries the way they are, it couldn't be individualistic. People don't understand that. In this case, unless you redrew them, which would probably take an active more than what force and what we have, you can use them only in a political and economic union.
Yeah,
that's the only way.
Think about it. Most Africans, even though they may be from certain countries, think about what tribe they're from.
Right. Yeah. Because the way they set up individually, it'll perpetuate what you see. So no amount of reform or work on an individual basis. And another thing is, the question was asked years ago, in terms of security, what nation state could repel a major foreign attack? Alone, none of them. Because again, they weren't drawn into consideration of one day being independent in terms of individual. So the only way you can use it as they're drawn now on the physical continent is to bring them to a wider union under a union government. Now, you could have those particular nations as states within a wider union. That's the only way it will work. It cannot work individually because they didn't draw it in that particular way to actually be a viable. See, they're actually economically unviable, which is why they're having these problems. So I don't care what kind of reform or colonial pact. I don't care how much money they get from the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, and from even doesn't matter.
You
because
know,
they didn't draw
you're correct, because if you think about it, even though they have it drawn so twisted, a lot of the times in the private sector, a lot of the companies, the private companies that are run, you know, by Africans, they have to trade across borders with people in other countries in order for them to be able to do things. And if they had more of a unification, it probably would make that process easier, so that the states each country could be viable.
Right. You cannot have foreigners controlling 90 to 100% of your land, your resource, and expect to develop. It's not going to work. So they have to break that. And that's only by revolution. And probably it's going to have to be at some point armed struggle, because these particular countries are dependent on that. They don't want to give that up, no matter if it's at the expense of all those Africans. They don't give a damn. They have a certain handful of Africans and tribes that are doing very, very well, but the masses of people themselves should be doing better than what they're doing, and it just perpetuates problems because they have chasing scarcity. That's the problem. There should be no scarcity. It's like a paradox, sis. It's like poverty in the midst of plenty, and that's intolerable. You have all those vast resources. You shouldn't be poor like that. It's because it's setup. So once the setup changes, once get to the point where they have to get rid of these puppet governments. I hate to say it. That's why I think it's going to have to be some armed struggle, because they're not going to step down. They're a product of the foreigners that control these countries. And so you have to get to the point where they kind of move sort of in a concerted way in union, in a way that's going to systematically bring the unity that they need. Because you might secure one or two countries as liberated zones, but they're going to surround countries that in the 60s down in Guinea. They held out a long time, but they overthrew Nkrumah in 66, and then of course Sekou Touré died in 84, and his government was overthrown. These two men ran one-party states. You know the reason for that, but you know they were. Nkrumah understood that the development of Ghana was linked to the liberation of Africa. If not, it's meaningless if it's not linked. So he understood it just wasn't Ghana that he was developing, but he was helping Africa itself become free at that particular time. You know, you had Rhodesia, you had apartheid government, you had the Congo problem during the 60s, you know, early 60s and stuff. So he was helping. He had liberated zone, training folks. You know what I mean? Training guerrillas. So it's going to have to take that. It's something that we don't talk about very often, but I understand that's what it's going to have to take, because these particular foreign entities, like the Oppenheimer Consortium, you've heard of Alcoa, you've heard of Firestone, I'm talking these big ones. I ain't talking about these little fast foods they got over there. I'm talking these big. Those are the conglomerates that I think brother was trying to mention. You know, you got the tin, nickel, diamond, and precious metal giants, and they control all of that. And there's probably, I have a book here that shows about over 1,000 companies. There's probably more than that, and hundreds of thousands of banks that come from France, come from Belgium, come from Great Britain, come from Portugal, come from Spain, come from the United States. You got these currencies. So you have this economic stranglehold in Africa, but to the world, they're trying to act like these people are just incompetent. They're competent because they don't want to kick these foreigners out of there, not because they just can't run the country. And these are products. Well, let me just say this real quick. The people who are in charge of products are the foreign power. So they're all puppets. You can only work so much for them. They're not going to do anything to anger their colonial master. That's really the size of this.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that's so true because I remember like a few years ago, I was in a investment group and we were looking at the gold mines in Ghana, and who did they want? They really wanted Black people here in the United States to come and invest over there because they were saying exactly what you're saying. We want you guys to try to get your monies together and come over here. Because literally the thing is that a lot of the people there don't have the monies. They really want to partner with people, like you and me, or groups of people like you and me, so that they can take control over more of those gold mines. Because right now, it's a lot of Europeans that are coming in there and setting up those gold mines and getting that profit.
Right. Yeah, they're running after massive up in the while we sit here twiddling our thumbs.
And it's because literally, in order to do that type of thing, you literally have to go over there. Because we were doing it, we had to have a representative that was on the ground over there on our behalf, and thankfully we did. But that's the only way that you can do that. I'm saying as far as helping them from the economy structure, as far as things like that. But I think what you're talking about is more being part of the mentor portion to help them to structure the stuff on their own so that they can see that they can be sustainable on their own, because I think they have it in their mind that they can't do it on their own. But there are segments of people that do believe that they can do it on their own. They just need to be given the same resources, that other people are given, and not have owning their own land held hostage.
Absolutely. So, it's got to be a revolutionary struggle to do it, because it's so entangled right now from these foreign countries, and that's how their economies are fueled. Goes in the pocket of certain people and not another. On the other hand, you have a lot of people of color and some whites too, who are don't get paid enough money to vote with it. So those people who have the most advantageous opportunity, and a lot of that's just not the African. That's the problem. Yeah. However, it's going to have to happen from the inside anyway. The people outside that's sincere about that are in a strategic position to be of assistance for the process, those inside the process. In the meantime,
that's what I'm saying.
I think
you can partner with someone inside, but it's really dependent on the people that are there.
Right, but I think what you're saying is definitely strategically is, for now at this particular juncture, as something that could be done, because not enough people are pushing revolutionary movement for independence. See, we just want to be able to control our interests, and that's it. So at that point, you can make treaties, you can make agreements, you can actually start putting a lot of finished products, manufacturing in Africa, refinement centers in Africa, so that you be a exporting colossus. You can probably, I'm saying in terms of, this is what a unified Africa could do. Instead of commodities going out in individual countries as one commodity, they'll all go to Africa as one. You understand? Gold, palm oil, diamonds. You understand? Yep. Copper, so tin, nickel, rubber, cocoa. These things will go out as one. Where now, you have a advantages in the market. You can really control the marketplace now. You're talking about 12 million square miles, all those sorts going out as singular commodities. I hope people can understand how powerful collectively that can make it.
No, I do, because the thing is that I'm thinking about, I mean, whether people, when you think about it, the largest continent obviously has the most people.
Right.
Obviously, the most people are there. And the fact that they are being held down is because it should be obvious to those of us on the outside looking in. It's because if they come together, they are going to definitely be a force to be reckoned with. Because at one point in the history of the world, they worked together. They did work together. They weren't fighting each other. But that got lost with colonialism.
Right. But we traced a natural movement, political movement for evolutionary Pan-Africanism, which is unification of these other but what it actually is. That's the one that's really the primary. They have this other, you see people talk about Pan-Africanism and they think it's something it's not. Really, that is actually primary. Just want to bring Africa together, make it stronger, change the whole paradigm of our reality from that point on into perpetuity.
Yeah.
So we understand on one hand what we are. We don't have to go home, but you have to understand the rippling effect is going to affect us every. So we want to stop. We want the mistreatment of Africans. Then let's unify Africa, and then we'll understand. Now you've got leverage in the world. That's why nobody messes with Chinese, because they know China is a force to be reckoned with. They understand. So we would be really more competitive at that point as a race of people amongst others, sort of a first amongst equals. So if people can't see that vision, then they don't understand. Being apart, set apart from it, being sort of a fractured part of it, is to maintain ourselves as a numbered minority. Always gotta unified. You know what I'm saying? You gotta unify Africa first to actually have a rippling effect in the diaspora. And you can stay where you are. It's not a back to Africa move. I want to make that clear in terms of, but see, we can tame Zionism. We can tame racism at that particular point. They got to come to Africa for the resources. So now we can control our interests. They got to behave. You understand? We'll have the forces to quell, I would think, develop forces, unified force to quell any problems that we may have on the world. They'll look toward us. They'll look toward Africa. You understand? And so our status just by that alone goes up. The paradigm now changes. So those are some of the benefits of post unified Africa. And you'll never have to go back home. You never, you will enjoy that at some point. Now that's not something the West wants to see. That's why I think at some point, obviously it's going to end up being a organized, armed struggle, because they're not giving up what they've stolen. And we understand that clearly, which is why struggle is necessary.
I just see that that there's a lot of, I just think that there's a lot of work to be done globally, because as long as Africa, the continent, is a mess, then it's going to be an issue. That is one of the reasons why there is so much dysfunction around the world with people of color who are descendants from there, because there is so much going on that continent. So I agree that if we as people, that know that, from the diaspora, see something going on over there, start to see that it will have the ripple effect. Exactly. It will.
So the whole ball game changed, and this is something serious. You want to accept, you don't want to go to anybody else. You don't want to now go to someone else's land and take no, because that's what people are trying to turn it around. It's ridiculous. I've heard all these things. They just don't want us to succeed in terms of getting power. We just want power. That's all we want. Anybody try to step on our necks, we got the power to kick them off. That's all. That's really put it simply. But we understand that Africa is instrumental to that wherever we are. Even if a lot of blacks act, oh, I'm not African, that's fine, but it's still going to represent you if something happens. It's still going to, by the very nature of unification, you'll see that. So, when I see things like ADOS and all this kind of stuff, to me, it's kind of divisive because at what point does anybody think that white supremacy is going to give them money from their cost?
Yeah. And that's the reason why I wanted to kind of bring out this education, just to know about what's really going on in that region, and what it's really impacted. I mean, it's that entire region is impacted by all of this. But it's all about political power. It's not about religion. It's not about sovereignty of any nation.
Right. And in fact, they have a large interest in South Africa still, even though the apartheid government is gone. The people there, those people who ran apartheid, they just went invisible. They're still there. They still control the economics. They still control the resources.
Yeah.
They still control the value of things, and the flow, the ebb and flow of goods and services. They just disappear, and they're more powerful now than they've ever been because you don't see them.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're able to hide in plain sight.
So they understand clearly the constructive use in African visibility, and that's all you have. You really have no power. You just have visibility. These people think because they get to wear suits, they can say that. Let's be honest. They can stand up in these parliaments. They think they're taking over something. What they did was they failed to set up an equitable distribution of the wealth. That's why you see the problems now in South Africa and other places. They didn't go the full gamut. They only went so far. Once they got their so-called nominal independence, the neo-colonialism, that was it. They wanted this allure of sovereignty, this just parlance of parliamentary authority, but they left the control of the most essential part of a nation or of a society, their raw resources, to someone else. So people who got them, people who got them by ill-gotten gains, was allowed to keep them. See, so they failed. I'm like, why did you go the extra step to redistribute the wealth equitably? Not the other hand, not to take the wealth.
Can I add something, Terry?
Sure.
You said that the ADOS thing is quite divisive for you guys. One thing I noticed is that a lot of the people who talk about this are black males here on YouTube. I don't see very many females who are black or African American talk about the ADOS thing, and I just don't get it.
Right. Well, let me just qualify that. I'm talking about those of us who understand the solution of revolutionary Pan-African. People like me who are Nkrumah's Terrace. My political ideology is Nkrumah's Terrace. Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of Ghana, his speeches, his thoughts and writings, and Sekou Touré are the same from the beginning. No, I don't hear many black women either, but it is a topic of discussion. A lot of people think that it's necessary. I do understand the arguments of what they believe the United States government owes them. The problem is, you look at the 400-year history, it's been dominantly negative if you study. I'm just figuring, okay, we came in fixed on the bottom, and as the capitalist system developed, that means through slavery, through Jim Crow, we were still attacked. At one point, with all that history of harm that's been done to black people, or they think somebody's going to now sit down and say, okay, we're actually going to give you some money to free you from us. I think that our role is almost a necessary condition in the West. Not that we want it that way, but it's fixed that way in terms of how we came in. We were maintained, or the demand for cotton in the antebellum South. And you can see that because I can give you figures of how the bales of cotton grew with the breeding of slaves. So they, they needed the labor. But I mean, I just see with all the advancements and all the progress this country has made, we're still put on the bottom. So I'm trying to figure out what makes them think these people, and this is how they do businesses. They don't think they're wrong. So how are they going to convince these people, or whatever they see reparations is? A lot of them tend to think it's a check, Angel. And I can think of other ways. In fact, I called on a Marshall Plan, and not reparations. But some people think it's a check. That's all you hear. They think they're going to get some. They think a lot of these people are in this because they think they're going to get a certain kind of money, which you don't control a economy. Where does the money go? It goes back to the same people getting it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You're not going to put it into a development bank. These people want to spend the money. So it's like, well, it's not. So if it's not heading toward the independence that you need from the situation that's been going on for far too long, then really it's useless. It's a waste of time. Now I understand the reason for it, and it's possible, but I don't think it's proper. I think it's a red herring. I think that at best we're going to see not only a co-optation of it with people who are trying to take it from those who the original intent of it, but you're going to see concessions given, and that's going to be what's considered reparations. It's not going to trickle down to every black man, boy, woman, and child. I think you have, and I think the leaders know that. I think the leaders know that it's going to stop with them. They're going to get, they might get a nice job somewhere, they might get some money, some notoriety, but it's not going to be this mass handing out of money in the first place. I want to know, at what point in history have they ever seen just the inkling of that, in terms of them wanting to ever do that for blacks? So I'm just going off historical precedent. I'm not trying to be mean here, but I have to tell the truth. So that's why I think it's divisive, because of those reasons. Not so much the people who really sincerely think, hey, this thing can work down here, and that's fine. But all the same, I don't think we're going to do it. I really don't. I just don't think that people who think that don't understand, others who don't understand our sojourn in this world, will understand handing out of what they probably would consider free money to people who they think don't deserve it. Not that I agree with it, but I think that's what they think.
Yeah, I think that's what it is too for some for a lot of them of a lot of the men that are talking about it on YouTube.
Right. I wouldn't do anything to forestall it. I interfere, but I do have a position on the matter, and that's it. I just feel that I think we could be doing something with the dollars that we have. We can start things ourselves, develop things. Like if you're going to work inside capitalism, then let's play the capitalist game. You know what I mean?
I agree. I agree, Terry. I think, I'm not saying that I'm for or against reparations, but like you, I think that what they're looking for and what's going to happen are two different things, if anything happens.
Exactly.
And, I think that it might be other things that they should be looking for if they're looking for true reparations besides a check.
Right. Now I do have an idea of how they could even score, or even the ledger with this. I don't think this would happen either, but it would be more feasible for me to see things like tracts of land, and to get these things that I'm about to mention real briefly, we would have to have institutions set up to manage these things. A certain amount of land that would have to be determined in terms of how many millions of acres across the United States. I think fully funded banks released in our control. Things like loans would have to be a little bit easier because at the point in time, actually the credit posture probably a lot of blacks are not very, very well. We'd have to be able to negotiate those things on our own with those institutions. I think all the black colleges could be, like I say, this could even score right here. Even if it failed, at least it would be a sincere attempt. All the black colleges will be fully funded and handed over to our control. Everything, the boards, everything. I mean, we have to do, don't interfere no more, that kind of thing. Schools, enough proportion of strategic proportion of public schools, primary schools as well, K through 12, and our control period, and our management. You would have to have, let's see, probably have to be in certain areas of the United States. We might have to migrate to certain places, not all on the spot, but certainly the banks.
You mean like communities?
Right. We have to have a development bank set up for industry as well. And I'm talking about industry that would rival their particular level that they developed these last 400 years. See, now, again, if you're really going to do it right, do it that way. So that way we can take the mantle and we can run with it from that point. That would pay it forward in terms of not only what the slaves worked at, but all the things that happened through Jim Crow, all the things that happened through all the sharecropping that went on, all the murders that we don't know about, the rapes that we don't know, what I'm saying? All the massive corporations. And release the non-violent people in jail to our care.
Exactly.
Now, if they did all those things, that's a Marshall Plan. That will, okay, now you paid us back. You owe us nothing. But the only person that talked about an adaptation of a Marshall Plan was Jesse Jackson, believe it or not. I'm not a fan of Jesse Jackson, but I remember when he said that back in the 80s. He was talking about that when he was running for president. People didn't get it. If you look at the Marshall Plan in 1948, they used that to help rebuild the nations that were war-torn in World War II in Western Europe. And there was a collective effort by certain other nations with this particular kind of monies to rebuild things, the infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, and things of this nature, certain places that had to be redone. And it worked. Well, we could use that and adapt that toward the United States. And what I just mentioned, that would be the payoff.
It would be. It's just that,
we could compete with it.
I know. I was like, it would be, but I'm looking at what Matt said. He's right. It would kill them to give anything like that to us.
Understood. I understood.
And that's my main thing. Is it's like, I mean,
what's up, D? See Deacon's in there.
Yeah, I said I typed in the chat. Hey.
I see.
I'm like, that, to me, it just seems that when this should have been during Reconstruction.
Thank you. Oh man, you took it away from me. I was going to mention that. Yeah, that was the best time for it to happen. I think that was the best opportunity they had. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's my opinion. It should have happened. It should have happened back then, because now it's like it's that much harder for anything to happen, because we've been oppressed for so long now.
Right. Standard operational procedure.
Basically.
Exactly. Yeah. So Yeah, it has to come to a point where the change have to be a qualitative change at some point. Now, I know revolution does that. I'm not going to get into revolution.
Yeah.
But however,
that's another conversation. But
right.
you know,
and we'll put that online. But if you're going to play the capitalist game, you got to be able to compete where the big boys are. You can't work from the bottom because you've been put at the bottom through all this development and kept it, essentially, most of your people. So you have to understand, look closely at the history, just our sojourn in the United States alone. You know what I mean? We've seen all these things that we just named, through history that has been affecting us over and over again. So that means that now the next thing is coming. You know what I'm saying? And so it's fixed that way. You understand? So either we got to play the capitalist game from the rear, and nobody wants to overthrow. So we're not gonna get into that, but that's really the only other thing that you have. You don't have a middle course because you keep getting bounced about. You know, you're still gonna be shot, still gonna be kidnapped, people still gonna be taken off the street, people gonna still attack you in other countries. What we've seen just in the last 8 or 9 years will continue, and what has happened this whole time. Cops beating, killing folks. They're gonna continue to do that because they have the wherewithal. It's fixed that way. So unless they really, and see, that's how I know these politicians do not really look at real viable solutions. They look at band-aids on a metastasized wound. It's tantamount to that to me. You see, if they was really serious, they would do some preventative measures that would be preemptive. They're not trying to do that. They like it the way it is. They really do. They'll never tell you that, but just look at the policy.
It's business as usual. Business as usual.
Yeah, nothing. So it's not their job. Their job is to maintain the status quo. They want certain people to be comfortable on top, and I think a lot of people have been misled to think that they should like the fact that it's the way it is in terms of the detriment of certain people. Not all, of course, but I think it's something that is normalized. You know, I don't think it's not normalized unless some black person can beat up by a cop somewhere. Or somebody shot. Or somebody, you know what I'm saying? I hate to say it. I mean, I'm not trying to be cold-blooded, but I must be consistent with my honesty. So when we look at that kind of stuff, we see that with the Palestinians. They occupy Palestine in their own land. You know what I mean? Not to mention the 800 or 750 to 800, maybe 1 million people that was ran out of it by 1945, 1947. They allowed them to be ran.
Exactly. They were run out. They owned land that they have never been compensated for.
Had to get up and go or die because some minority group wanted to come in and were allowed and protected while they were doing it to take over their land and annex it.
And it's like when you look at those old film clips and everything, and you see those people literally like walking out with some with just the clothes on their back.
Right. So they won't tell you that those people are the Semites and they are the victims. See, the Khazar Jews, they were spread out because they lost their power in their own land. Their land is Khazar.
Yeah.
It's not that anymore, but that's, it was never Palestine. Not in terms of a sovereignty.
And that's one of the things. It's just that I just really wanted the point to be made that none of this has anything to do with religion, and it has everything to do with political power, and that our country and Great Britain, the UK, have a lot to do with that happening and that being maintained to this day.
Precisely. It's so normalized people don't even realize it, and that's the point.
And that's the reason we keep going over to the Middle East and fighting. That's why we keep sending our boys over there. to protect that interest. That's the real reason.
See, all this wealth has been monopolized by a few people. Excuse me, a few families, groupings, and a class. And so, they control the areas that comprise multiple countries. Where they tend to look at all three branches of major powers, the government as one entity, because they own so much capital. They got it at the time that these things were still being seized by them without any kind of regulation, without any courts telling them to cease. And when those protocols were put in place, they were already in possession of what they had. So that's where they are.
Yeah.
They're the Oppenheimers, they're the Rothschilds, the DuPonts, the Cantons.
And again, all of that is part of the New World Order and part of the quote unquote fictional or non-fictional, however you want to look at it, Illuminati.
These people can make suggestions to Trump, say, this is what I want done. Can you get that done, Donald? Okay, thank you. Click. You know what I mean? It's because they hold so much.
It's interesting to me that some of the families that are, these powerful families are part of those descendants from the Khazar Jews. Right. Just something to note.
Yes.
And that's because they have made themselves the usuries, the ones who have the money and the power over the money. That's how that happened.
Right.
They strategically placed themselves when they moved from their homeland and scattered into Europe, but wherever they were, that's what they made themselves strategically in those positions, and that is what they are known for.
Yeah,
globally.
They're prohibited to own land by and large around 13th, 14th century. Yeah, 15th century, 16th century. Yeah, they were usurers. They were masters of money, wherever it was. That and interest rates, absolutely. They even had jobs in the royal houses of the English crown. Probably still do, I'm sure. Queen Elizabeth probably have some Khazars as accountants, I'm sure. But yes, they especially during feudalism, which was roughly, I'm talking about Western European, around 880 to through the late part of the 14th, 15th century, I believe, going into like 1496 or something like that.
Yeah.
But,
I think in one of our future conversations, we will talk about the New World Order as, to Matt's point, and bring up some of those things like the Breidelberg group, etc. And how, but it will show you how the Jewish people as we know them today are also linked to that.
Absolutely. That's why. So when the world went from feudalist to capitalism, you know where they were.
Yep.
Capitalism, expansive economic system, and so why a lot of them are so wealthy, because they were already linked in. When the world went to capitalism, they just went right along accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I know this was a longer one, guys. We're coming up on the 3 hours.
I was good.
I'm sorry. What are you saying, Angel?
Yeah, I was going to mention back when you hit it the 2 hour mark, but I just didn't want to interrupt Terry at all because it's.
No, I knew that we were probably going to go a little longer tonight, and since most of us are off tomorrow, I didn't have a problem with us going over. I knew we were going to go over. We will go more than 2 hours tonight, so that's not a problem. I'm just, letting everybody know that, that I'm being cognizant of their time, and that, I wanted to give Terry an opportunity to give some final thoughts for tonight, because this is obviously a conversation that's going to evolve into other things, like, dealing with the New World Order, because it all rolls in together.
Yeah.
I hope I was informative tonight as I was.
Yeah. You were pretty informative tonight there, Terry.
Thank you. Yeah. I just emphasizing points, and just encourage people to do their own research, to read for themselves, check references. Oh, and by the way, let me go ahead and give my references too before.
Yes, please do. That's why I wanted to give you the opportunity before we shut down.
Okay, I used three references tonight, and I had a lot of stuff I didn't even go over, but that's okay.
No, but we have more conversation, because I knew that us doing this tonight would just be really just to start it up, because it leads into so many other things that we've already, kind of touched on in other conversations. People
Right.
wanted to talk about the New World Order. This brings us into it. So we needed to have the conversation about this and finish this up in another one before we can even talk about the New World Order.
Agreed. Let me just say real quick, and these are references that I would encourage people to jot down if you have a pen or pencil handy with some paper. The first one is called The 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler. It gives the history of the Khazar Empire from start to finish. A lot of what I said is based on the book. Arthur Koestler. The second, and you probably picked it up on Amazon, if not the library. The second one is Zionism in the Age of Dictators. Zionism in the Age of Dictators. It tells you the Zionist movement from Theodore Herzl and how they actually collaborate with the Nazis. A lot of people don't know they collaborate with the Nazis. How did they do that? Because it had nothing to do with Judaism. That's why they turned their back on it, which we talked about earlier. So Lenny Brenner is the author of that book. The third and final reference is The Zionist Connection by this gentleman called Liederthal. I can't pronounce his name. I'm tongue twisted. Liederthal. That's his last name. And that talks about the Balfour Declaration, analyzes the Balfour Declaration. That's a good book, The Zionist Connection.
Yep.
So those three are some of the, and there's others, but those three are three of the main books that if you want to know about these things, you can study and be up to speed, because our educational system will never teach you these things. No.
And I mean, at some point in us having the conversations in these live streams, I'm doing some of the research right now, but I'm gonna do a conversation about the education system here in the United States and what they did to make it a certain way so that we only learn a certain amount in the schools, and it was purposely done.
Yeah.
It was purposely done, and the lady that was over the Department of Education at the time that this happened wrote a lot about it. There's several YouTube videos out there in regards to it, but that's something that will be something that I want to talk about at a later date. But I think, the next time, maybe, I don't know if we'll do it this week. We might wait until next week to have that, but I think we do need to finish this, because I know we've just probably done part of it. So it depends on how you guys are feeling, or how you are feeling. Maybe we'll do that on Friday or on Saturday, or we'll push it off to next week, whichever is best for you. But I know that you have other stuff, and I know that there's a little bit more that we want to talk about in regards to this before we even get into the New World Order, because I don't think that we've covered everything that we needed to cover on this that will be pertinent to that New World Order conversation. And I want to make sure we have all of that background in regards to the Belfar Treaty and modern day Israel as it relates to that, because if you guys are noticing, some of the families that are part of Judaism are also part of the New World Order.
Yeah, I really agree, sis. And I do think that we could take a look at the modern policies that govern Israel and the policies toward Palestine, and in terms of some of their action, the bombings that went on in occupied territories, that kind of thing, people get shot. I think some of the more contemporary things, I think we kind of bring forward too now. Now we have the background, we laid the groundwork in terms of how they got into and power in occupied Palestine, which I call occupied Palestine. Sorry.
Yeah, because
Israel, but
I just thought we needed an understanding of all of this, because I know that we, in several previous live stream, people have brought up things about the New World Order, but I also knew that this had to be discussed before that, because some of the players in that conversation are a part of this conversation, and you needed to see how they played in this part of history to understand their role in that.
Right, but is it okay if we actually also cover some of the more contemporary policies on the?
Absolutely, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I wanted to finish the conversation, so we finish this before we even delve into New World Order.
Gotcha. Okay, absolutely.
Because I was like, because that's a whole nother conversation. It's related, but I wanted to finish it exactly. That's what I said, talking about modern day Israel as we know it. That's why I said. So we want to finish all of that, because I know you have more, and I wanted us to be able to finish all of this before we even get into that. But because Matt had mentioned that in the chat, I just want kind of to direct that we're going to finish this, even though we're not finishing it tonight. We're going to finish a part 2 of this conversation so that we can get out all of that other information, and then after that, then we'll have that New World Order conversation, because then it'll make more sense.
Right.
So I just wanted to thank everybody, Terry, especially you, for doing the research that you've done. I know this is like passion for you. So it wasn't hard to twist your arm to do the information on this. And Angel, thank you for being up here and just hanging out with us, and jumping in where you felt you could just ask a question. And everybody in the chat, I thank you guys also for spending this time. I know some of you guys do celebrate Thanksgiving, some people don't.
Geek don't. Geekin doesn't.
Yeah, that's what I said. I know some people do, some people don't, but I just wanted to say I appreciate you. Most of us have tomorrow off, so I appreciate you guys giving me some of your time,
No problem.
sleeping in, so I appreciate you guys getting on here with me. I will probably be popping in and out, I probably will do a live for a short period of time during the day while I'm cooking, while the games are on and stuff. But I will be on tomorrow night, for our nightly thing, especially since I don't have to work on Friday.
Well, sis, it was an honor as always. I appreciate
it. This was such a good conversation. And tomorrow, even though I know tomorrow is the national holiday Thanksgiving, I think part of the conversation tomorrow night should be probably about the history, about the real Thanksgiving.
Okay. All right. You want to talk about that? We can talk about that.
I think that would be something that we should talk about tomorrow. I didn't want to have that conversation before that date. I think I want everybody to have their, have that day, enjoy it, for however they wanted to do, and then have that conversation tomorrow night.
Say I'll be coming out with a couple more videos. I'll try to make them longer. I know.
Yeah.
But I'll try. I caught your message.
Yeah, but I think DOD, that will probably be a conversation that you would want to be jumping in, because I know you have a lot of information in regards to the true history of that. So I am, if you're available tomorrow night for in the live stream, I would love you to also come up that to talk about that as well, because I think that would be an appropriate conversation tomorrow. I really do.
I definitely want to get Dick's analysis, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's what I would like to talk about on tomorrow night. You know, I mean, I may have some more information in regards to, you know, that book. I'm almost done with it, believe it or not. But I wanted to have some, you know, I wanted to at least spend part of the time really talking about the history of Thanksgiving, because everybody may not know about it, and that may explain why some people don't celebrate it. For those that do. And I just think it will be an educational moment, because I like to have teachable moments just so we just know, you know, because I don't think anybody is against those who do celebrate it, but I think it's just important to know the history.
Right.
So I just thank you guys all for being here, and you know,
let me go down.
Always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure, Angel and Terry. It's always a pleasure to have all you guys out here with me, and I just appreciate it. But until later on today, I'm gonna do some cooking when I get off of here. I'm offering you guys peace from the West Side, and I will see you guys doing the daytime hours today. Thank you, everybody, for coming out, and I'll see you guys then. Bye.